Hey everybody, happy Tuesday and welcome to another Techstrong TV broadcast. I am Charlene O'Hanlon. Today is Tuesday, November 16th, and we have a fantastic show lined up for you today. We are going to get things kicked off with a conversation between Alan and Aaron Kinsbruner, who is the DevOps Chief Evangelist over at Perforce Software. I believe Aaron has been on Techstrong TV before, but this time Alan and Aaron are going to be talking about Black Friday. It's happening next Friday, guys. I can't believe it's so quick, so soon until Christmas, but Black Friday is coming. It's going to come hard and it's going to come fast, guys. So it's really, really important that organizations be prepared and include running end-to-end automated tests for core user interactions on online shopping sites. And so that's what Aaron and Alan talk about, basically ways in which organizations can prepare their systems for the onslaught that is Black Friday. After that, Alan speaks with Jeffrey Keyes, who is the VP of Product Marketing and Strategy over at Platora. And Platora is announcing a number of key features that allow for a new kind of release management. They're calling it progressive release management. That includes a revamped release insights dashboard. So Jeffrey and Alan talk about the progressive release management offering that Platora has and all the goodness that it provides. And it's always a great conversation with Jeffrey Keyes. After that, we have our Haunted Hacker podcast, and this is part two of a two-part conversation that Mike Jones has with Deirdre Diamond, who was the founder and CEO of CyberSN and founder of Secure Diversity. And they discuss cybersecurity's CISOs, hiring in the cybersecurity space, job searching and inclusion and diversity, all topics that are near and dear to Mike's heart, I know. And it's a great conversation. After that, we have our Something Old segment. This is from the recent Cloud Native Days with Kubernetes event. This one features Lucy Hartung, who was the senior specialist at AWS, and her presentation is titled Transform Your Developer Operations with ML-Powered Insights. So she talks about how you can augment your developer expertise with machine learning capabilities and leverage machine learning-powered analytics and insights before problems arise to help teams be more proactive, enforce best practices by default, and ultimately innovate faster. Great presentation there. After that, I'm back with the news headlines for you, and then I have a conversation with Jay Denton, who is the Chief Labor Market Analyst over at ThinkWhy. Jay is back on Techstrong TV. He and I had a conversation before about, I believe it was the developer job market, and this time we're talking about the DevSecOps job market. Jay's got some great insights into hiring patterns and where we're seeing talent move and shift in this DevOps space, and DevSecOps is definitely a growing market, so you don't want to miss this conversation, definitely. After that, I speak with Charlie Newark-French, who is the COO over at a company called Hyperscience, and we talk about automation and the automation skills gap that currently exists and how organizations need to upskill their employees in automation, which is so critical to the overall health of a business in our digital first world that we are living in today. So it's a great conversation there. After that, I've got the webinars preview for you. And then we have The View with Vizard, in which Mike Vizard speaks with SpeedScale CTO Matt LeRae. And they explain why building microservices-based applications is difficult. Okay, it's going to be a great conversation, and it's going to be a great broadcast, and we're going to get things kicked off right after these commercial messages.
CISO Talk, to hear how real-world CISOs are dealing with today's real-world issues. From enabling secure remote workers to accelerating secure cloud adoption, defending against a pandemic of security attacks and beyond. CISO Talk covers the cyber topics you want to learn about. With your hosts, Unisys CISO Matt Newfield and MediaOps CEO Alan Schimmel, featuring a revolving panel of CISO cyber experts. This is where CISOs talk. Join us on digitalanarchist.com and techstrong.tv.
All right, welcome back, everybody. First up, we've got a conversation between Alan and Aaron Kinsbruner, who is the DevOps chief evangelist over at Perforce Software. They're talking about Black Friday, which is quickly approaching, and how the sheer amount of activity during Black Friday puts tremendous pressure on DevOps teams to ensure applications and their websites are running smoothly. So the two of them talk about the importance of running end-to-end automated tests for core user interactions. This is a great conversation. Let's get to it now.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Techstrong TV segment. My guest this segment is my friend Aws Kinsbruner. And Aws and I were talking, the last time we spoke was in person at a Jenkins World or DevOps World or one of the, kind of DevOps events. But it's probably been going on 2 years. So, Aws, welcome to Techstrong TV. I'm glad to see you're well, you're looking good, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Alan. Happy to be here.
Yeah, better than the alternative. So, Aws, people may or may not know you are now with Perforce. Perforce, of course, is I think a lot of our audience have heard Perforce over the years. They've been around a while, in the repository and version control. But most recently, over the last 3 to 5 years, Perforce has really been on an acquisition spree, and they've acquired some real expertise, an area of concentration, I call it, around mobile application, mobile app testing, mobile app security. But you could probably tell the story better than me, Aws. Why don't you tell the story?
Of course. So Perforce Software today is a full DevOps portfolio company. And as you mentioned, Alan, it acquired few companies over the past 2-3 years around SAST, study code analysis testing, with Clockwork and QAC. It acquired Perfecto, which is a cloud-based testing platform for web and mobile. Just a month ago, announcing acquisition of Blazemeter for performance testing and API testing, and obviously acquired API monitoring solutions and much more. So if you are a DevOps practitioner, developer, tester, operational manager, actually Perforce can walk you through the entire DevOps pipeline, from planning through testing and development up until production monitoring and API monitoring. So it's a full-blown solution across the entire DevOps chain.
Excellent, and thank you for that. And it's funny. What started years ago, and I've interviewed so many people at Perforce over the last couple of weeks and months. What started here has really come into focus with testing and mobile and so forth. Aws, we're in November already. It's hard to believe how fast time is flying. And I'm starting to see anyway, every retailer in the planet, right, is advertising Black Friday deals. First of all, they started advertising for Christmas. It wasn't Halloween yet even, right? It was still October, and all these stores have their Christmas decorations out. It's like we can't wait to get to Christmas season. But there's unique challenges here. Let's talk about them a little.
Definitely. I think that, Black Friday is always kind of a holiday of shopping for retailers. And, after this crazy year of pandemic, when almost anyone who wasn't digitally transformed, now everyone is mostly digital. The shoppers kind of not just raised their expectations, but became very aware of the remote shopping, the online shopping, rather than face-to-face shopping. And I think the pressure over the past year, and actually even with this upcoming Black Friday, is just going to the maximum level, which means expectations of the end users today are much more, strict than they used to be, because if in the past you had multiple options, today, especially after the digital transformation, most of the products are being sold online. In addition, due to the pandemic, the supply chain is quite limited. So there is kind of a race condition here with shoppers that from one hand want to enjoy the end user experience of shopping with highly performing web and mobile applications, but they know that some of the stocks are limited. So they are going to definitely hit the, different deals and coupons and whatever is being broadcasted, like you have seen over the past few weeks. They're going to hit it immediately. So as soon as there is a new promotion, a new sale, and obviously on the Black Friday specific day, there is going to be a very massive hit on these different retail websites and mobile applications. And for that, these retailers needs to be prepared. What I always say is, if you as a retailer or a digital business, are waiting all year for the Black Friday just to do your preparations and testing, that's a huge mistake. You need to be prepared daily for Black Friday, because it's a matter of setting up environments, mocking services, making proper testing across all these different channels, web applications and mobile applications, different devices, different operating systems, different locations, different networks. Because if you're just waiting for the last minute, obviously your web application won't be ready for prime time. So a lot of pressure.
Absolutely. What's unique also this year with the Black Friday, with the whole holiday shopping season, is you have these two kind of competing things. Number one, there are many people, many consumers who are flush with cash, right? A lot of people have had nowhere to spend the money, nowhere to go over the last 2 years. At the same time, you got supply chain issues, which are making certain goods very scarce and driving the pricing up.
Yep.
So if you're selling Xbox or PS5s or something like that, it's crazy, right? They're out of stock as soon as they're in stock. So this, as if it wasn't bad enough, the toll that puts on your infrastructure. Like, I know I was trying to get PS5s. We raffle them off as prizes to the events we do. They'll say that the Walmart.com or Best Buy or Target or whatever is doing a drop. Boom! As soon as that page goes live, they're swamped. I mean, in 5 minutes, they're back out of stock. I don't know how many units they have, but it's just crazy. How do you, as a retailer, how do you prepare for that kind of, that goes beyond just regular Black Friday. It's crazy.
So that's exactly the point. That's exactly the challenge here. And as a retailer, especially online, you don't really know who is the shopper. You don't know who is the buyer and from which country, which location is going to actually make the purchase. Because everyone, can go to the website or at Walmart or Target or Best Buy and try to order. And they can do it from their smartphones. They can do it from the desktop, or they can even do it via voice commands. They can talk to Alexa and whatever. So the buyer journey today is so complicated and can originate from so many different devices, digital channels. So obviously, the retailers need to be very creative in the way they are testing, because the platform is the platform, right? You have a shopping cart, you can add an item to the shopping cart, and hopefully it needs to be updated with the stock items and everything. But the website is the website. The user journey here and the massive scale that comes and hitting that and gate or servers, this is the challenge on the retailers, and they need to simulate and do the testing pre-production, and sometimes even in production, they need to do monitoring at any given time, just so they are prepared. And today, we are, as you mentioned, in November, we're just a month 1.5 months away from the new launch of iOS 15, new iPhones, new iPads, new Google Pixels with Android 12, new privacy policies. There are so many different interruptions that are impacting the digital channels, right? Flutter, new type of applications, progressive web applications that can work on mobile and on web without even going through app stores. How do you cope with that? Proper testing, continuous testing, shift left performance and user experience testing into the pipeline, so you get this feedback and user experience within your development cycles, within your interactions. So it's all about quality assurance at scale across the right platforms, web, mobile, both, and obviously thinking like the end user and expecting the unexpected here, coming from so many different origins.
Yep. So I got to ask you a hard question. So we sit here today, we're recording this, it's November, I guess it's November 9th, something like that, right?
Yep.
Is it too late already for people out here who are saying, my God, we got to get in front of this?
What's your best advice?
We are about 3 weeks away. I think it's very, very, at the last minute, okay? Because people are already in the mindset, they already want to plan their purchases for the holidays that are coming up. So if you haven't built the infrastructure yet, yes, you are in a deep problem. If you have the infrastructure, but you haven't shifted left, you haven't provided your developers with feedback on quality of service, quality at scale across different devices, operating systems, and user experience testing, this is the last minute. This is your last chance this week or so to really understand what's going on. Because I'll tell you something, Alan, if you have a performance bottleneck, you have a performance issue and you find it late, it's not like a minor exception that you need to fix in your code. Fixing performance at scale issues with backend services, databases, and user experiences, unique platform support, and stuff like that takes time. So even if you identify the issues within the next week or so, to deploy a fix and to validate that it didn't break anything else, it's quite a challenge. So I do hope that the majority of the retailers have done all this prep work quite in advance.
Absolutely. All right, I always like to do this when I'm doing these, kinds of things. For people out there who maybe they have the infrastructure, right? Give them three things they should take out from here that they can do between now and Black Friday, between now and the end of the month. That'll help.
Of course. So first thing, start by looking at your own analytics, your web traffic analytics. Look at also previous years and see what the end user experience was like. Okay, so the web traffic analytics gives you a lot of data. It gives you the top user agents that are hitting your backend services, which are the most used smartphones, tablets, desktop operating systems, and browsers. Okay, it at least narrows down this unique and huge digital industry so you can focus your testing on. That's one. So look at your web traffic analysis and understand your end user majority of platforms that they are using. Second, make sure that you are covering all the key business transactions on your latest production environment across all the different digital channels. I know you cannot cover everything, but you can divide the digital landscape into families, right? Devices and operating systems, browsers and operating systems, okay? Once you can divide, these iPhones and Androids on these operating systems and these browsers like the latest Edge and the latest Windows, 11, which is, by the way, also a new platform that needs to be covered. At least you can, again, looking at the analytics, combining the coverage with the different families that you can cover gives you the market, if you like. Then start scaling your testing, okay? Starting from single user performance up until applying more load on the back end and see what's your threshold, okay? We know that a given business transaction takes more than 3 seconds to give the end user a negative experience of your web application, your website. So put some KPIs. I hope you have them already, but measure the KPIs across different loads, so you know at least what to expect. Because 10,000 hits on your backend server, maybe it's good. 1 million, you need to be prepared for that. Okay, and if they're coming from different locations in the world and coming from different user agents, you need to cover that. So again, look at your analytics, look at your coverage mapping of web, mobile, and desktop applications, and scale, with different segments up until you understand your thresholds and prepare for that.
Excellent.
Eran, we're out of time, but I want to thank you to the Perforce folks. You know what? It sneaks up on you every year, and all of a sudden you wake up and it's, my God, the holidays are here. Busy times. You got to be ready.
Definitely.
And this is the time. It's great seeing you. I hope to see you in person soon. Maybe next year early we'll be on the road again.
Looking forward, Aaron. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right. We're going to take a break here on Techstrong TV, and we'll be right back with our next guest.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Next up, we've got a conversation between Alan and Jeffrey Keyes, who was the VP of Product Marketing and Strategy at Plutora. They're talking about Plutora's new progressive release management offering, which offers a new kind of release management. Good stuff there. Lots of features in this new offering, and Jeffrey and Alan talk about all of them. So it's a great conversation. Let's roll it now.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to another Techstrong TV segment. I'm really happy to have, he's been on our show, I don't even know how many times, my really good friend Jeff Keyes from Plutora. Jeff, pleasure to see you again. But, man, I'm counting the days till I see you in person. I give you a hug over there. It's been so long. Too long.
It's been way, way too long, and I'm looking forward to that. I miss getting out, getting to, get in to see the big groups again. That'll be great.
I was in LA last week last month. It feels like last week for KubeCon, Cloud Native Con. And look, it was, I think, 3,500 people, including the sponsors there. But that's okay. It was so great to just see that amount of people. And Jeff, I had a line of people who just wanted to say hello and catch up. Right? There were other people I was doing interviews with, but these were like my buds, who we haven't seen each other in a long time. I can't tell you how good it made me feel.
Yeah. It's been too long. I miss being with people that way. So
I think it's a human thing. I think we kind of
fooled ourselves but placated ourselves and say, oh, this is cool.
Right.
And then the other thing I noticed when you go to KubeCon or your first shows back, Jeff, you're going to see people that you've only seen on here. And you're going to say, my God, I thought you were much taller. I didn't realize you were this short, Or, Jesus, I've only seen you from here up. And,
right.
So that's a whole nother thing. Anyway, man, hey, it's good to have you on, whether it's in person or virtual. Thanks for coming on. So our audience knows Plutora. We do a ton of stuff, but value stream management continues to be one of the hot button topics going forward, and you guys are, of course, one of the leaders there. But maybe people don't. Not everyone here. Maybe we've got a few people who don't know Plutora, Jeff. So why don't we, if you don't mind, give them a quick
kind of
Platform got us started back in 2012, really focusing on release managers, environment managers, trying to get people out of spreadsheets and out of doing manual stuff, if you will. It started off as this control plane above the software delivery factory. That day, I remember we didn't really integrate to anything. It was just like, as long as you had the spreadsheet, put it in there. It was a big task manager, would email people and get people doing stuff. Meanwhile, DevOps was taking shape. And so there was all these automation activities that were happening. And so we had to put these things together. And at some point along the lines, a few years back, we used to call ourselves continuous delivery management back in the day. It was like, well, wait a minute. Really, these are value streams. And Chris Kondo came out with his hallmark piece from Forrester about value stream management as a way of thinking and managing solutions, and thus was the category born. We've always been, as a pure play control plane above the software factory, a control tower, if you will, to seeing what's happening. So we ingest data from across the tool chain, put in a big data warehouse where we can do analytics, have a bunch of tools that does management and orchestration across that, and really just help the software delivery factory be more efficient and improve the collaboration and visibility.
Excellent, man. That was a great job. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
No, you got that. Sounds like you might have told this story once or twice.
Well, it's a powerful story because, if you're a small little company, most of my life has been small little software companies, and, I've screwed everything up even in that world. I empathize with our customer base, which is enterprise software companies. Mm-hmm. They talk legacy systems, they're talking about people retiring and, trying to keep those systems alive, systems that have been around for decades, and everything's changed.
No doubt.
Trying to make processes go better and so forth. And, really, last week we had an announcement, and I want to tell you about that because, in essence, what we're seeing as we've evolved in this value stream management space is there's an emerging hero in software development. And it's a group that I never would have anticipated. And it's kind of surprising to me, in fact. So,
all right, you got us at the edge of the seat, man. Come on, don't do that. What am I going to wait next season?
I remember talking to an executive about a group of release managers, those guys that are out there that are, often an extension of operations with the goal of get teams ready for CAB, all sorts of legacy processes. When you hear the word release manager, you think governance, project manager, and the executive said, if those guys burn out, I don't care, I'll hire more. There's such a cost of business that they were sort of useless. In discussions with some of the more DevOps purists, in fact, that group doesn't even exist. And so it's a dying culture because the intent is to automate your pipelines, your quality, your infrastructure, everything's automated. So all that gets shifted left. And so in essence, you kind of don't need that so much, but yet the governance side of the business still is keeping it around to try to make sure the right things happen. Well, here's what's happened. Last week, we announced 3 features. Basically, we revamped an insights dashboard, which gives you a 360 view over all the releases that are happening. We incorporated build analytics. So these battering of builds that are happening across the organization, we now bring that in so you can get some information about that. And we also took a higher level where we integrate to the road mapping systems that are there and the planning systems to incorporate the initiatives and correlate that against what's actually happening and answering some questions about progress of initiatives. What's happened is some really cool things that we've put in the hands of these release managers that is changing things. So the release managers have been really just hair on fire, reactive. Their job depends on data. And so the entirety of their life depends on them going, and I call it death by 1,000 shoulder taps. They're tapping somebody on the shoulder. How's this going? What's going on? Where are you slow? What's back? And all of that process of communicating, getting data, promoting other people, this guy's late, let me see the dependencies, consumes their time. We released this insights dashboard, and the power of that insights dashboard is a game changer. it enables release managers to stop doing all this communicating, because all the visibility and transparency is automatic and transparent. And so all they have to use is use this dashboard to find where the problems are and manage the work by exception. They already know when somebody decides they're going to release, in 2 weeks, there's a defined set of things that they've got as a template to go follow. They can look immediately and go, oh, they're behind. Let me go help them. Let me go navigate through this. And all of that is the game changer, because now you've got these guys that are already involved in the risk, they're involved in the process, and they're involved in making sure it actually gets their success with it. When you free up their time, they now can do some really cool stuff like, focusing on DevOps adoption. Because in essence, the more teams shift left, the better the quality, the better the efficiency, and the better the throughput. And that's in fact what they do. So one of the things we hand to the release managers is we've got a DevOps, metrics dashboard. So you can look at every release and say, what are my core, deployment frequency, cycle time? And we hand to these same release managers the set of value stream metrics as defined by the Value Stream Management Consortium. Really, I'll give again, Peter Hyde, great from Gartner, great kudos for defining these that the VSMC has gone behind. But those flow metrics look at the efficiency from idea to value realization. And when you put that in the hands of a release manager, all of a sudden it starts to transform into a value stream manager, or what we're calling a progressive release manager, not to be confused with, feature flagging, but really they're doing a different job. They're taking data and helping improve the teams because they can. And then they can clear the path and say, hey, look, the more automated you are, I'm going to put you in the fast lane and you'll get there faster. Don't want to deal with cab? Automate these things. You want to deliver on demand? You better be CI/CD and implement your. Basically, they're pushing the transformation, and that's what's awesome. So the power of that insights helps unstick the DevOps, which has been largely stuck, unstick the DevOps journey, and that's helped them. Now, there's a couple other things that we've also introduced in there. One, build metrics is, builds are happening all across the organization. The problem is for the guys managing risk, they don't have visibility into it unless they go and, again, tap somebody on the shoulder. And there's, great information in builds. Is this the first build you've done in a month? That's good to know. You got 600 commits in that build. Wow, that, one build with that. How much do I believe that? Or versus the teams that have been doing builds every single day and have green builds, and this is just another bit. You get a sense of where to go focus your efforts, again, to manage by exception. So we integrate and highlight and aggregate that into the insights and off of each value stream. Again, make these release managers become more efficient and focus on the efficiency of the pipelines themselves. The last one, initiative management. I met with a VP of application delivery, and I love what he said. He said, you know what, on the planning side, the portfolio side, we've planned hundreds of projects and initiatives. I have no idea where any of them are at. The business cases were made. We're going to spend $1 million and we're going to do all these different things. I can't even tell you which ones are still even being worked on, let alone were they successful or fulfill what they said they were going to. I need a way of doing that. Well, Plator is doing that. So basically, we give all these different, correlate these different metrics that we have back to the initiatives themselves. What's interesting is we then use these flow metrics, which give dynamics of throughput by team, what their lead time, cycle time, look at the work remaining, and we can answer a fundamental question. Are they going to make it or not? Is it even being worked on? We can answer all those questions and put them in one spot. Now, that's interesting because now we put that in the hands of somebody that's spanning teams, the release manager. They can actually deliver business objectives. The results of all these things, besides, release managers staying relevant as they become progressive release managers, is that they're improving software delivery efficiency. One of the metrics we have, for example, is we're seeing as much as doubling the throughput of software delivery. It's massive. Take your entire dev team. What's the value of if you had a second dev team? Some of our customers have bigger development teams than Facebook. Mind-boggling, right? And what's the value of that to the business? Not just of the cost overall, but they did that, meanwhile, reducing incidences in production by a third. And it's not necessarily that they reached out and touched production that much more frequently. I think in one case, it was only a 20% increase in deployment frequency because they were using a scaled agile approach. But they got so much more through the pipe. So the new heroes of software delivery, the release managers, progressive release managers.
So there's a pattern here, right? We have seen this over and over in DevOps, Jeff. DevOps is going to change everything. It's going to make the QA person obsolete. We don't need a QA person anymore.
Right.
We don't need a release manager anymore. Any monkey could just hit the button, or we can just automate the button. But we release continuously. There's no more. It's another job we're going to eliminate. The ops people, the DevOps.
It's just all code, right?
Right. It's infrastructure as code even. But here, so that's always the wah, wah, wah noise up here. The reality is we never lose any of these people. What DevOps does in the long run, help make them more valuable, help free them up from the mundane to the high value. Right? To be more valuable, to shift left, to dig in better. Because, and there's a lesson here. I don't want to get all Star Trek-y on us, but there's a lesson here for society when we free humans up from doing mundane, repetitive, busy work and allow them to soar. They add much more value to the equation.
Well, and talk about the impact to business. I mean, how long we've been talking about get more efficient, and the best, before VSMC, the best defined metrics were, well, how frequently do you deploy to production? Really? Or how long does it take you from the time you check in code to get to production? Really? I could be checking in comments. Who knows?
Yeah. Right, that's definitive.
Whatever. Hey, Jeff, we're low on time though. I got to bang out of here. We got another one coming up. But man, it's great seeing you. I love this release. This release is available, right?
This release is available. Last week we announced it. Come talk to us. We'll tell you all about it. Get yourself started on flow metrics and what it means to transform your release management group.
Release managers, the new heroes. All right. Hey, Jeff Guy's here from Plutora. Jeff, come back on soon, but hopefully we'll do one of these in person soon.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Alan.
Man.
Hey, this is Alan Schummel. We're on Techstrong TV. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
ContainerJournal.com is the leading online destination for centralized computing-related content. ContainerJournal.com covers all aspects of software containers, from container management, data management for containers, container security, networking for containers, to the entire container ecosystem, Kubernetes, microservices, serverless, and more. ContainerJournal.com has the largest selection of container-related news, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.containerjournal.com to learn more. ContainerJournal.com is operated by MediaOps Inc., the team behind DevOps.com, Digital Anarchist, SecurityBoulevard.com, DevOps Connect, and DevOpsDozen.com.
All right, welcome back. Next up, we've got the Haunted Hacker podcast. This one is a conversation that Mike Jones has been having and continues this conversation with Deirdre Diamond, who is the founder and CEO of CyberSN and founder of Secure Diversity. And they talk about the usual suspects in the Haunted Hacker podcast, cybersecurity, but they also talk about CISOs and hiring practices, job searches, and diversity and inclusion. And all of them are very great topics to cover in this podcast. And as always, Mike has a great conversation with his guests. This is no exception. So let's go ahead and roll it now.
But it doesn't matter what you do. Like once you start building a profile, a public profile out on the internet, people approach you differently. And how does the platform make up for that, or does it make up for that? Because eventually there has to be some sort of face-to-face, right?
Yeah. Eventually you have to have the face-to-face. I would say that you're probably going to, for anybody in that situation, is going to find that in the financial firms for sure.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are going to be the least capable of understanding.
Yeah.
And then on the other spectrum is going to be security software companies, who totally get it. And then there's everything in between. But as the good news is that, less financial firms are trying to figure out how to get out of that too.
Right.
They're trying to figure it out. It's not that they don't want to, it's just regulations. They have regulations. A lot of people don't understand a lot of laws that are out there that are causing a lot of the churn. So for instance, the Equal Pay Act, which is a wonderful thing to have. We have to have it. It's worked. The minute it went into play, we saw instant, change in equality of income, because you can't ask what somebody's making anymore. And people, on all genders got significant raises because that game was over. But on the flip side, the challenge is that it's caused that a lot of people are disturbed by, interviewing for a job to find out they can't pay what they're looking for. And that's because you can't bring somebody in over somebody else, and to readjust everybody else can be months and months of work and nightmare. And so companies aren't really ready. They're not prepared. They haven't done their analysis. And even if they did do their analysis, if it took them more than 2 months to do it, their data's old, and we all know it takes 6 months, a year. So that has caused a lot of churn, and we actually now have in the Career Center salary data for every role. We update it every month. It's everything 2 years experience on, because that's where we really play, all the way up to the C-suite. What's the lowest we see? What's the highest we see for a base salary? So at least everybody can understand what you're playing with, what you're competing with, I should say. Laws are a challenge to recruiting. Even some laws of, that were meant to be good, like anything, causes something else too. Ideally, it's less significant, like it is. It is that. And the EQ piece on finding joy in giving to others. Only managers that find joy in giving to others should be managers.
Totally agree.
Bottom line. And I want everybody to understand what emotional intelligence is. Like, what's the definition? And the definition I love the best, you can probably find it at the top of your Google search, which is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. That's the name of the game. You put your IQ and your EQ together, you're unstoppable. And by the way, that makes your personality. And the good news is your EQ doesn't cap out in terms of brain development, whereas the IQ, once the brain's fully developed, because it's a test, it's really about taking tests, the abbreviation, a person's level of intelligence measured by tests is what IQ is.
Right.
And that stops it when the brain's fully developed. It could be somewhere in somebody's 20s. Whereas EQ doesn't. So that's there's hope, there's possibility, is that, we can grow our empathy. We can grow our personal relationship skills.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It reminds me, so a year ago this month, I was literally homeless, and I just got back from the UK. I had COVID, just got out of the hospital, had no money in my pocket, no job. And from people in the industry and a good friend of mine, I was able to get a job and build myself back up within a year. So I think that the more people, I know it sounds bad, but I think when people struggle, they learn more empathy. They learn what's important, and how fragile and how just perfectly balanced things can be. And if something tips off, then everything can fall apart. I had to learn that the hard way. And I try to teach that to my new employees that, hey, I'm not here just as your boss. If you have something going on, we can absolutely talk about it. Because I think empathy in the workplace, especially through management, a lot of people I think are afraid to show empathy in the workplace, not just because, HR lines and don't want to cross them, but also to not seem vulnerable, I guess. I see that a lot, especially with male, management, and people who've been in the industry for quite a long time. They tend to follow by the book, and everything's black and white.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I was just
go
going to
ahead.
say, for those people, they really need to either get out of being a manager or adopt owning measurable agreements. Making measurable agreements, managing measurable agreements, meaning people that aren't as high in the EQ, the way to get there is to set the playing field for success, such that one doesn't have to rely on their emotions so much, or even, and everybody should be doing this anyways. It's a part of my framework. It's where a lot of disruption comes from, is not having measurable agreements on projects and tasks and how much time it's going to take, and then following up when you make a measurable agreement and then you realize, something's changed, and then right then and there changing the measurable agreement instead of waiting later is the responsibility of us all. And if we're doing those as managers and as individuals, then there will be less emotions needed to have a great place. And so those people, again, they need to get out, or they need to adopt that. And if they do that, then they'll have more brain capacity, emotion capacity to think. The other thing is, I say this often, I'd love to drop all politicians in a war zone. And I think they ought to, in order to have their jobs. I mean, just the fact that war zones even exist is disgusting. And so let's drop them there. And I think empathy will be, I think we'll have a different game. And because you're right, a lot of people are removed from what's going on. People say I must have have an old soul, but for me, I see it every day. I know how lucky I am, and how I'm just a number away from being born somewhere else where destruction is done to those places. And there's really more of that than there's more of what we have, and even what you just went through. I mean, those people would love to have that opportunity, right? So it's just ridiculous to me that we're even in this place. And so thankfully, the stock market, because we know nothing happens without money, has caught on. Public companies have to do more constantly. They have caught on that high EQ environments mean more money. And so because of that, there's more awareness. Awareness then translates finally at times into training. Although, I'm only seeing us be in the awareness stage right now. That ought to be what comes next. And yet when you think about that, it's like, well, who's got that training? I've got my training. I've been training on my companies. I've got an EQ tree and all the skills we own and learn. But where do you go? I mean, there's Myers-Briggs and personality stuff that really helps. It helps, but it's not enough.
Right.
It's not. It's just a way to get in tune with an understanding, but it's not a development process of training. And so, where do we deal? I mean, situational leadership is pretty rad, I must say. But again, it's not everything. That teaches how to manage people based on tasks and projects, and it will make measurable agreements a lot easier, and managing up and managing down and managing sideways, and that's really operationally critical. But like, words to use and not use, and win-win communication, listening skills that are really truly being present. Those are skills. Like, I have gone through 17 years of training. I mean, those guys weren't just putting up companies. It was training, and then outside of training in terms of transformational mind dynamics and things that I've done where I've completely continued to transform my ability to speak words that land positively and make solutions move faster and people, be turned on at a great level, which luckily I've always been able to do, but even more, and so I'm with you. I love turning people on. I love giving them opportunity and showing them a way to have their, help themselves. And yet there's just not enough of us.
No, absolutely not. And I think that the comment you made about the politicians, I've always said, because I was in the military twice, served during 2 wars. And what I've always said is a president should not be able to step foot in the White House unless he served in the military. Because how am I, as a member of the military, supposed to respect the commander-in-chief if they've never been in my shoes? Yeah. They know nothing about the military. They just took it because they've been in politics for 40 years. I have a real problem with that too. But yeah, so the pandemic, I think, has raised a lot of unique situations as well, with hiring and with the interviewing process, and the whole, I guess, work environment as a whole has dynamically changed. And I don't know if we'll ever get back to a completely normal office situation where we're all face to face and we're sitting in cubicles, or however the workplace is constructed. Have you seen a lot of change during the pandemic as far as the way people are working and the way that they interview and the characteristics they're looking for during those interviews when it's a working from home situation?
Yeah, so I'm just about to publish a lot of stats on this, so this is good timing. I get asked a lot by the journalists, is cybersecurity a part of the Great Resignation? Is it happening in cybersecurity? And, if the Great Resignation means moving from one job to another, yes, it's been impacted much more. And mostly because of recent 2 things. One is even the talk of going back into the office, never mind being told they have to be in the office, or even in the office a couple of days. It's really not what the majority wants. You find that senior leadership seems to be okay with it, which makes sense considering they probably have homes and kids in schools and what have you. But the individual contributors are, either have moved or just have really enjoyed the time they've gained back in their lives, and they're just not willing to. And so because of that, there is much, much more resignations going on to the organizations that are doing that. And then we're also seeing just the burnout being so significant that the resignations are at a higher level. And for the first time, seeing people retire in their 40s, retire in their 50s, just can't do it anymore, work, it's not different in any place to them, and that's really breaks my heart and scares the hell out of me as a human and society and everything else, to see how much burnout is happening. And then, something that we've seen a lot of recently, during COVID is, we all know billionaires were made, tons of billionaires were made, right? So what does that mean for the tech community? That means acquisition. And acquisitions cause chaos, and particularly already to a stressed security team. Are you serious? And the way we all handle, acquisitions is so poorly to begin with.
Right.
And that on top of it's just like, breaking point on the West Coast. Like, you can just feel it in Silicon Valley. I have a massive presence there. We've been there a very long time, and you can just feel it. And so that's also super sad. And much more stress and burnout. And so, with our clients, it's like, you have to prove to us or create with us that you have a career plan and a strategy, and you must be good people, or I'm not interested, all those things. So our clients, are achieving and succeeding and, sort of never leave us, so to speak. And yet, we're not servicing everybody, right? So there's a lot of work to be done, meaning how many people just aren't even trying.
Yeah, and I know there's a ton of those people out there as well that are either intimidated by the process or would just rather not do anything. And I think the pandemic, just the general sense of anxiety because of the not knowing, and this is somewhere we've never been before. I think that plays a part. We also have a huge issue in cybersecurity, especially within the security researcher, environment, or whatever you want to call it. We have a huge issue with mental health, and I've lost, probably 4 friends in the past year from suicide. And I think it's a mixture of overly successful, a lot of stress, burn ourselves out, stretching ourselves way too thin. Because one of my biggest problems in my career is learning how to say no. That's not something I was prepared to deal with when I got into cybersecurity. I didn't expect to be in that position where I'd have to tell people no. But the more that we take on, I think the pandemic made things a lot more difficult as well, because when you're working from home, they think that that's a luxury. Most companies think that's a luxury, and it's, that's something that we're blessing you with. So therefore, if I call you, you better answer the phone no matter what time it is. And that's killing people. It literally, you never get off work.
That's super sad to hear that. That makes a lot of sense to me, that the calls are constantly coming. And it's even sadder to hear that 4 of your friends, I'm so sorry for your loss. Yeah. And really your community, the space that your skills is in, the red team, blue team, right? The thing is the most challenged community, because they're the most misunderstood. They're the most vilified, and typically are, genius status and trouble, sometimes communicating. And so they, definitely have it the worst. And so it breaks my heart. And, working from home for a lot of professionals, while it's good, it comes with a ton of challenges too, because, a whole new lifestyle with, who we're cohabiting with, or maybe children at home during COVID. Oh my gosh. And I can't imagine. I don't have, homeschooling and doing what we all do. Like what? What? So it's like, of course people, and also how about this angle too, which is, my organization, where I am like seeing people work all the time too. And I'm like, they're happy, but I don't want that to cause a problem, because even though we're liking it, doesn't mean it's good for us. So I had to think to myself, what can I do? What can I do? And one of the first things that came to my mind was, when we're all off, we're actually off. Not all people get to be off when everybody else is working. A lot of us do not. And so minimally, let's make sure every bank holiday is off. I didn't realize that we had 4 that weren't. And then let's close down between Christmas and New Year's. And let's take days that where we're all off. That's one thing that I thought of. There are lots of other things. And yet I'm still thinking, because even for me, I love working, but there's less to do out in life. And so it's really easy right? Because I don't have plans to go to this concert that I used to go to, or the live music doesn't even exist for me anywhere anymore, unless it's Saturday, maybe now, whereas that's what I would do. Well, if I love working, I'm going to work. And so, managers need to pay attention to that. We all need to pay attention to that. And then, like you said, the ability to say no, unfortunately, having to be able to do that is, it's not easy. Who wants to tell their boss no? His boss or whatever,
or turn down an opportunity. Any opportunity that comes to me, it seems like I get some really great opportunities. Like I'm working with Alyssa Knight doing content creation for her new media company, and that was something that I wanted to do, and I was excited about. Still, I'm excited about it. But other opportunities come up, and I may not have enough time for it, but they're friends, and I want to help them out. So I don't know how to say no, and I end up working, sometimes till 2:00 in the morning. Next week, I give a talk in Cyprus. I have to get up at 2:00 in the morning to give the talk. I do stuff for the London police, and sometimes I get up at 4 a.m. to help them, because there's no longer a time zone anymore. Like when everybody went home and worked from home during the pandemic, time zones don't exist anymore. And I think a lot of people need to be more cognizant of time zones as well. Scheduling meetings, scheduling interviews, media, they need to learn that, yes, we're all working from home. We're no longer in New York, or we're no longer in the UK. Let's keep that in mind, because that does add to the stress that people put on themselves, I think.
Yeah, in fact, we've seen on the West Coast, which tends to be a bit more progressive as it pertains to the treatment of humans, considering the great state of California leading a lot of this over the years. You can tell I'm from there. Even if I wasn't, I'd say that. And I'm sitting on the East Coast, which I'm bi-coastal, and I love it. But my point is that, those organizations while they're allowing everybody to be remote, they don't want East Coast people because they don't want to have to be on calls late or early.
Right.
And that's a good thing. That means they're thinking about their mental health, and they're thinking about their people. And so I'm super happy to see that. I'd like to think that you could still do it and not have to have meetings early and late. As I tell clients all the time, like, okay, but you just cut off half the country and everybody's remote. Really? Like, what you can't work a schedule that allows for that? And, think about it. And some of, they're starting to, again, in a talent war, you have to think that way and push back. But yeah, it is very true that time is this, just flow. It's not so, structured anymure. And that is a challenge for all of us. We do a lot of it, most of us, if not all of us, love structure.
Oh yeah, structure and routine, I think, are my two vices. I have to have structure and routine.
Me too.
When those get out of whack, I don't know what to do. So when somebody comes to you, or if somebody's trying to get into the industry, what would you say is probably the first thing to learn before they go out looking for that perfect career, that perfect role?
Yeah. So the first thing is understanding what role they want. And with 10 categories and 45 job functions in cybersecurity, that's the most important thing, because what happens is they go to an interview and they're sort of saying, I'm open, I'm interested in anything. And the hiring manager's like, yeah, no, I want somebody who knows they want to be a pen tester. I want somebody who knows they want to be an analyst. I want somebody, whatever it is. And yet, these entry-level folks are getting trained in probably 3 or 4 or 6 different disciplines. So that's why I launched this career center at Black Hat for free for everybody, all roles mapped, all what they are, career pathing, certification mapping, all of that. And it's just going to continue to get better and better. But that's the first thing, is really know what you're going after, so that when people can help you. It's hard to help somebody when there's so many ways they can help you. So help others help you. Do a Jerry Maguire, right? So help me help you by knowing what you're looking for, so that I can get you to the right places. If I'm a hiring manager, maybe you're, or somebody that's trying to help you. You gotta own that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think that some, people getting into the industry as well, one of the first things they should do is learn balance and also how to take time for yourself. There should be a class on mental health and, not burning out, because the majority of us suffer from that day to day.
Yeah, my behavioral standards, which are 8 items that I just rolled out, one of them is a self-care culture. If you're an organization that is not going to have a self-care culture, forget about it. You will lose. At the end of the day, the talent war, for sure. And what that means is a culture that talks about health, a culture that supports health. I'm always talking about take some time to breathe, or sending people bullets so that they can make smoothies. When they first come to the company with green, vegetables, and I talk about that, or breathing and yoga and exercise. I used to, at 28, I weighed 310 pounds, and I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day and getting very little sleep, making all kinds of money, and all of a sudden I'm in the hospital, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I want to play. I just got here. And so I transformed my life, and I became addicted to positive behaviors or positive, skills versus the negative ones, which were eating foods that weren't food, or consuming too much food, or then not exercising and not running a schedule so that I had enough sleep. And I had to own that. And I still own that, because if I don't care for myself, I can't care for others. And so a company's culture must foster that. That's the name of the game, that we all want the same things from life. We all want support and kindness and love and wage equity and growth and opportunity and training, be around respectful people. We all want that. So let's make sure that the environment supports it, talks about it, and creates self-care. I give massages as gifts. I, take people to yoga festivals. I mean, I personally, as a leader and a manager, am thinking about doing things that are also active too, not just talking about it. So you want to spend time with me? Great. Will you go for a walk? Because, I got to get my walk in today. I'm notorious for that. Or you want to, join me for a yoga class, and then we'll go out and have a bite to eat, kind of thing. So it really is about a self-care culture, and the organizations have to own that. Absolutely. You sound like a great boss to work for, by the way. So we're coming to the end of the hour, and I have to say it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. I think this will reach a lot of people and hit home with a lot of people, and hopefully give newcomers some insight into what they should do and how they should go about doing it. Is there anything that you want to ask me? Any questions about the Haunted Hacker, or anything else? I definitely want to thank you for what you're doing and your service, and to let you know that I'm always here for you too. If there's anything I can do to help with the people you're working with, supporting, you just reach out. And on that note, we have one client. It made me think when you were talking earlier that I love all my clients, but my point is that this client needs a pen tester. They have a role open, and they're lovely people. I know the CEO. I don't personally do any recruiting, but I onboard all new clients, almost all new. So I'd love to give you that job description. Maybe you can share it around. It has the salary and everything. Lisa will put it in chat. But other than that, I just want to say to the community that, there's a lot of people that care. So just reach out. I can help. I can introduce. And if you're ever feeling down, I'm happy to cheer you up. Seriously. Awesome. Well, we appreciate it, and I definitely appreciate it. You definitely have a personal touch in everything you do. I think that's really super important. But anyways, thanks a lot, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show soon. And I look forward to it. Have a good evening, and thanks a lot. You too. Take care. Thank you, guys.
Welcome back. Next up, we've got the Something Old segment. This one is from the Cloud Native Days with Kubernetes event. This one features a presentation by Lucy Hartung, who is a senior specialist over at AWS. And the title of her presentation is Transform Your Developer Operations with ML-Powered Insights. This is a great conversation about how organizations can utilize machine learning in their DevOps environment to work faster, more efficiently, and more effectively. Great presentation. Let's get to it now.
Hey everyone, thank you for your time to attend this session today. My name is Lucy Hartung. I'm a senior sales specialist from AWS. Today, I would like to cover with you how to transform your DevOps with machine learning powered insights. We're living in an economy that's increasingly digital. The cloud helps accelerate the digital economy. With over 200 million software developers, business can modernize and transform themselves in a way that's not possible 5 years ago. Enterprise DevOps teams are maturing and looking to reduce complexity by adopting more standardized services and tools to pivot towards cloud service that embedded basic infrastructure automation. One of the key areas that many organizations have identified as a source of opportunity is to improve their pace of innovation in their software development and operations. DevOps is a combination of cultural philosophy, practice, and tools that increases an organization's ability to deliver their application and services at high velocity. DevOps ensures fast and shortened release cycles that can get new application and features to customers faster and reliably. Under DevOps model, development and operation teams are no longer siloed. Sometimes those teams need to merge into a single team where engineers and developers work across the entire application lifecycle, from developments and testing and to operation. Develop a range of skills that's not limiting to a single function. These teams use practices such as CI/CD, microservices, infrastructure as code to automate the process that historically has been very manual. They use the technology stacks and services to help them operate and evolve application quickly and reliably. These tools also help engineers independently achieve that normally would require help from other teams, and this further increases a team's velocity. Here are some examples of DevOps benefits. Accelerate pace. DevOps model enables developers and operation teams to move at high velocity so customers can innovate faster and adapt to change market better, grow more efficient at delivering business results. Rapid delivery is a second one. DevOps holds the key to unlock software development innovation and helps increase the frequency and pace of release so customers can innovate and improve product faster. The quicker you can release new feature, fix bugs, and the faster you can respond to your customers' needs and build competitive advantage. Thirdly, faster recovering from incidents. It's inevitable that you're going to experience customer impacting services disruption at some point. No matter how well tested your code is, the team that works in the DevOps methodology finds resolutions faster through better coordination, more open accessibility, and shared learnings and better performing monitoring. And last but not least is reducing costs. all the DevOps benefit translate to reduce overall costs and IT headcount that can be utilized for other important projects. Although DevOps technology has evolved dramatically over the last few years, there are still challenges related to concurrency, security, and handling sensitive information that often slip through existing mechanisms like peer code review or unit testing. AWS is on a journey to revolutionize DevOps, with AWS machine learning model informing by 2 decades of Amazon.com and AWS operational excellence. We are providing useful insight before problem rise, help team be proactive, enforcing best practice by default, and ultimately helping customer innovate faster. For example, we can speed up development by generating code from natural languages. We can detect divergence from the best practices, concurrency issues, or other common code bugs. Before they had a chance to affect the system, we can get actionable recommendations that will improve the system performance. We can analyze our code to ensure that security best practice holds everywhere. We can identify expensive and insufficient methods in running application and provide actionable steps to fix them and save money. We can evaluate operational data to reduce the time and effort spent analyzing and resolving issues and finding issues before they rise. Let me walk you through our portfolio of fully managed AI service that helps organizations utilize machine learning to help improve their developers' operation. First, let's take a look at how we can proactively improve code quality. Code review is very important at every stage of application lifecycle, both during development or once application is up and running. The tool that Amazon.com used is publicly accessible to anybody by using AWS Console, and it is called Amazon Code Guru. It is powerful by machine learning that provides intelligent recommendations for improving code quality and identify an application most expensive lines of code, and it scans for critical issues, identify hard to find bugs, and provide recommendations to remediate them before they become an outage in the production. Code Guru Reviewer identifies code issues in the 9 broader categories and equip your developer team to maintain a high bar of coding standards in software development process. First, we provide AWS best practices, such as correct use of AWS API, and also correct use of popular languages such as Java and Python and library features. Second, we'll take a look at concurrency, detecting missing syntax errors issues resulting in incorrect functions or excessive syntax leading to a performance issue. And we also take a look at resource leaking, correctly handling the resources, such as releasing database connection. Sensitive information leaks. This is very important for any customers. We want to making sure we prevent that leakage of sensitive information, such as logging AWS account credentials in the plain text. And some common coding best practices, checking for parameters that looks for lines of code that could create bugs. And also code duplication. We want to identify duplicate codes and be able to consolidate that to have a better code quality overall. And last but not least, input validation, making sure we check for malformed malicious data from untrusted sources. Code Guru Reviewers has helped multiple customers automating their code review process, including our customer IT consultant. IT consultant has built automate code review directly into their pipeline, which means they can deploy their code faster with more confidence. Now let's take a look at a Code Guru Profiler. Code Guru Profiler continuously analyzes application CPU utilization, heap usage, and latency characteristics to show you where you can spend most of the cycle or time in the application. The CPU and latency analyzes to present an interactive flame graph that helps you easily to understand which code path consume the most resources. Verify that your application is performing as expected. Uncover areas that can be optimized further. In this example, you can see the method of upload gray image is spending approximately $134,000 per year in consuming approximately 10% of the wall clock time. So if this is not what you're expecting spending this much, you should be able to investigate further. And this gave you that information and insight to the issue here. Teams at more than 194,000 companies rely on Atlassian. Atlassian products makes team work easier and helps them organize, discuss, complete their work. Atlassian has been using Amazon Code Guru Profiler to detect anomalies in the production and has been able to reduce their investigation time from days to hours, sometimes to minutes. Their developers now focus on more of their energy on delivering differentiated capabilities and less time investigating problem in their production environment. Another key program we just announced is AWS Bug Bus, the world's first global challenge to fix 1 million bugs and reduce technical debts by over 100 billion. Bug bashing is a common company or team event held to discover a large number of bugs that within a given time frame, the developers who find and fix the maximum number of bugs win the event. Many of the software companies run them in the weeks before launching a new product or service. AWS Bug Bus takes the concept of a bug bashing into the next level. The AWS Bug Bus allows you to create and manage a private event that will transform and gamify the process of finding and fixing bugs in your software. It includes automatic code analysis, building leaderboards, and customized challenges and rewards. AWS Bug Bus foster teams to build and introduce some of the friendly competitions into improving code quality and application performance. With what's more is your developers can take a part of the world's largest code challenge, win a fantastic prizes, and receive kudos from their team. AWS Bug Bus helps you to transform your bug bashing events. It provides easy and fun way solution to foster team building and bring friendly competitions to improve your overall code quality, application performance. You can set up a private Bug Bus virtual event quickly, easily in AWS console and build a leaderboard, challenge, and rewards. Bug Bus utilize machine learning powered developer to Amazon Code Guru reviewers and Code Guru profilers to automatically scan your code and weed out the bugs and gamify fixing and eliminating the bugs. Fixing as many bugs as possible, score points, earn badge, and reward as you climb up the leaderboard. As you bug your bus, you're become part of the mission to fix 1 million bugs globally. In addition, tracking on the global leaderboard, the global bug jar will track total number of bugs that are being fixed worldwide. You can celebrate your contribution, earn badges and exclusive prizes that more than the bug you can bust. So we have a couple prizes here. Earn 100 points, you will receive a t-shirt. Earn 2,000 points, you will receive a jacket. And earn 10,000 points, you will receive a trophy. And the most exciting piece is finish in the top 10 of the AWS Bug Bus global leaderboard that will win an expense paid trip to AWS reInvent this year. Here is a quote from our customer Nextro on how Bug Bus provide their dev team in a fun way to systematically improve the code quality. With AWS Bug Bus, not only were they were able to increase the number of critical issue found before the application reached to the customer, but also reduce the code review time and help their developer building a new coding skills. And the best part is they're having fun doing that. Now I want to introduce continuous assessment. What happens after application deployed in the environment? As organizations continue to adopt microservices, the number of disparate services that contribute to delivering application increases, driving the scope of the signal that on-call team monitoring grows exponentially. There is a need to reduce noise. Bring the surface to the most critical issues with most relevant data to help identify the cause and resolve the problem quicker. This is exactly what Amazon DevOps Guru seek to deliver. Amazon DevOps Guru is a fully managed machine learning power service that monitors the application to automatically improve application availability and reduce downtime. Amazon DevOps Guru continuously analyzing, consolidating stream of operational data from multiple sources such as Amazon CloudWatch metrics, AWS config, AWS CloudFormation, AWS X-Ray, and provide you with a single console of dashboard to search and visualize any anomalies in your operation data, and therefore be able to reduce your time to respond to the incident faster. Amazon DevOps Guru improves application availability, remediate operational issues faster with less than manual effort by leveraging machine learning powered recommendations. It continuously ingests, analyzes metrics, logs, events, and traces to establish normal bound for application behavior. DevOps Guru then take a look at from what's a normal behavior to aggregated anomalies to create operation insights based on compounded relationship in the application you have. Application insight including informations which compound are impacted, identification that's related to anomaly, and recommendations on how to remediate using the data such as AWS CloudTrail events. Developers and operators can enable DevOps Guru to configure and set up alarm for their applications. As application evolves and you adapt to new services, DevOps Guru automatically recognizes the new resources and ingesting related metrics. Then it alerts you when there is an issue occurred from normal operation pattern without requiring any manual update to the rules and alarms. DevOps Guru also leveraged years of experience operating at a high available applications such as Amazon.com, uses machine learning model to train on the internal AWS operation data to provide accurate operation insights for critical issues that impacting the application performance. And DevOps Guru natively ingests with Amazon CloudWatch, AWS Config, AWS CloudFormation, and AWS X-Ray to discover tracking connections and dependencies between application components, and also natively integrated with System Center to enable you automatically receive ops item in the Ops Center to each of the insights that DevOps Guru generates. This allows you to leverage the Ops Center functionality to further view, investigate, and resolve operation issues faster. DevOps Guru also integrated with third-party incident management tool from PagerDuty, Atlassian, who are able to ingest SNS notifications from DevOps Guru, so you can automatically manage incidents within their platform. 605.TV is a DevOps Guru customer. They have over dozens of AWS accounts and tens of thousands of resources to monitor. Even with the infrastructure as a code, creating dynamic alarms to these services, it was difficult for them to manage and correlating metrics and quickly get resolved issue faster. With Amazon DevOps Guru, they were confident that the alarms and notifications they receive are accurate from the machine learning powered metrics, correlates across multiple services, and DevOps Guru also provide insights that helps them focus on infrastructure roadmap. All of those services I covered here today is available on AWS Console. There is no upfront cost, long-term contract, or commitment for any of those three services. You can get started with Amazon Code Guru reviewers at no cost. The free tier lasts 90 days for up to 100,000 lines of codes on board repositories per AWS account. After the 90-day free tier expires, your repository size exceed 100,000 lines of code, you will pay a standard pricing based on the repository size. You can get started with Amazon Code Guru Profiler at no cost, free tier lasting 90 days. When the 90 days is expired, you will pay a standard pricing based on the number of sample hours below. And you can find more information about Code Guru pricing on the AWS Code Guru site. From AWS Bug Bus, when you create your first AWS Bug Bus event, all costs occur by underlining usage of Amazon Code Guru Reviewer and Amazon Code Guru Profiler are free of no charge of the first 30 days per AWS account. First 30 days free period applies even you have already utilized a free tier from Amazon Code Guru Reviewer or Profiler. You can create multiple AWS Bug Bus event within the first 30 days free tier period. After the first 30 days free tier expires, you will be charged for Amazon Code Guru Reviewer and Profiler based on your usage. There is also a free tier for DevOps Guru, including analysis of 72,000 AWS resources group A and B, and then also a usage of 10,000 DevOps Guru API call per month for the first 3 months. For more information, you're able to find that on DevOps Guru pricing page. I just want to conclude that thank you for your time listening to the session, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about Amazon Code Guru, Reviewer, Profiler, Amazon DevOps Guru, as well as Bug Bus. Thank you.
Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. This is Charlene O'Hanlon and I'm here now with the headlines. First on DevOps.com is an article that offers up what developers need to know about edge computing. More and more companies are moving from thinking about edge computing to recognizing their business cannot optimally grow and compete without edge computing. Developers will play a key role in helping organizations use the edge, but their effectiveness will depend on having edge-aligned processes, products, and people in place. Edge computing takes place near the physical location of either the user or a data source. It's one way that organizations can use and distribute a common pool of resources across multiple locations. The edge model provides users with faster, more reliable services while expanding the potential of hybrid cloud computing for organizations. While it is in many ways a question of architecture, applications are key to effectively exploiting the edge. This article offers up some things developers and their organizations need to know. And we look at successful software development in hybrid environments. We all know that the new normal for the majority of today's workforce will be hybrid, a few days in the office and a few days working at home. We are a workforce in transition. Yay! For many companies, this has put a strain on their digital transformation initiatives. So how can companies continue to innovate and execute on their software development initiatives with their employees separated from their teams and their offices? This article looks at some recommendations for helping organizations to continue their software development projects in today's hybrid work environment. Employees have made it clear that they don't want to be back in the office full-time. For many organizations, a return to normalcy centers on developing a hybrid workforce that can work effectively with digital development partners. Creating the right environment and strengthening employee relationships are keys to ensuring software development projects can continue successfully in today's new normal. All right, in news, Google is now offering Cluster Fuzz Lite, a tool that makes it easier to incorporate fuzz testing into a DevOps workflow. For those who aren't familiar with the term, fuzz testing refers to an automated software testing technique that involves providing invalid, unexpected, or random data as inputs to an application to discover issues such as potential memory leaks. Cluster Fuzz Lite is a lighter weight version of a tool that Google makes available to its internal development teams. It is not a fuzz testing tool itself, but rather a tool that makes it easier to surface the results of a fuzz test within a DevOps workflow. Once those results are surfaced, it then becomes easier for developers to address issues before an application is deployed in a production environment. Core capabilities enabled by Cluster Fuzz Lite include continuous fuzzing, sanitizer support, corpus management, and report generation tools. The goal is to make fuzz testing more accessible to a broader range of developers as part of an overall effort to embrace DevSecOps best practices. All right, over on Container Journal, we ask the question, when is Kubernetes service ownership the right fit? When indeed. Service ownership covers the lifespan of software, from development to deployment to the sunsetting process. And this shift to full spectrum accountability brings about dramatic improvements in the overall speed, reliability, security, and cost of applications. But it's not always easy to determine which organizations need this level of ownership. When businesses grow, they typically discover that pushing the delivery of applications and services through a gate of operations is challenging at best, impossible at worst. Even so, the DevSecOps mindset is on the rise, which means teams are now seeking ways to make this type of shift into more meaningful and effective ownership. It is the shift that enables a deep fundamental change to occur within an organization. This article explains what Kubernetes service ownership is and who benefits most from the model, and offers up some ways organizations can easily enable Kubernetes service ownership. Good stuff. All right, over on Security Boulevard, we look at the ongoing issue of whether victims of ransomware attacks should pay up. Last October, the U.S. Treasury Department advised that companies not pay, and if they do, they could be subject to sanctions. But as we all know, in many cases, not paying could effectively put a company out of business. In September of this year, the Treasury Department updated its advisory to say pretty much the same thing. So what does the Treasury Department recommend if a company doesn't want to be sanctioned by the Treasury Department? First, it must prove that it has taken steps to meaningfully reduce the risk of ransom or extortion by, for example, being compliant with cybersecurity regulations or following the guidelines of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA. And if a company is attacked, it should initiate a complete report of a ransomware attack to law enforcement or other relevant U.S. government agencies, such as CISA or the U.S. Department of the Treasury's Office of Cybersecurity and Critical Infrastructure Protection, as soon as possible after the discovery of an attack. This must be done voluntarily, as soon as possible, and on the company's own initiative. OFAC also wants victims to notify their local FBI office, FBI field office, the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center, and or their local U.S. Secret Service office. Our resident legal guru, Mark Rash, goes into detail the ins and outs of what to do in case of an attack and parses out the good and the bad from the Treasury Department's latest advisory. Also on Security Boulevard, Lacework has acquired Soluble, a provider of a platform for remediating code that was created to provision infrastructure, and added an inline vulnerability scanner to its platform that identifies vulnerable container images and updates them before they are deployed. Designed to be integrated with the continuous integration platforms, the inline vulnerability scanner makes it possible for developers to discover and address issues before they are discovered by cybersecurity teams in a production environment. As part of an ongoing effort to secure cloud-native application environments, Lacework is also adding an admission controller for Kubernetes that will automatically block container images from being deployed in a production environment if they fail to meet security standards. As cloud security becomes more of a shared responsibility with development teams, thanks in part to the rise of DevSecOps best practices, organizations will require cybersecurity platforms that enable policies to be enforced regardless of what type of application is being deployed. Responsibility for security is shifting further left, but workflows across both development and security teams will eventually become more intertwined. And finally, Barracuda Networks has published the results of a survey that found 35% of 10,500 organizations analyzed were targeted by at least one bait attack in September, with an average of 3 distinct mailboxes per company receiving one of these messages. Bait attacks, also known as reconnaissance attacks, are attempts to gather information that can be used to plan future targeted phishing attacks. These attacks usually manifest themselves in the form of emails that have very short or even empty content. The goal is to either verify the existence of the victim's email account by not receiving undeliverable messages, or to get the victim involved in a conversation that might lead to leaked credentials or even a money transfer. These types of attacks are difficult for email gateways and legacy anti-phishing tools to identify because they barely include any text and usually don't include obviously malicious links. The only way to effectively thwart these attacks is to rely on detectors that make use of machine learning algorithms and other forms of artificial intelligence, such as computer vision, to examine messages and make correlations across multiple sources, such as communication graphs and reputation systems. In addition, organizations should have in place automated processes to remove these emails from inboxes before they are opened. Finally, end users must be trained to recognize bait attacks as part of an organization's anti-phishing training program. Just another threat in the ongoing cybersecurity war. All right, that's it for the headlines. Please check back with me next time and I'll have a fresh new batch for you. Until then, I hope everybody has a great day, and please, whatever you do, stay safe.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Techstrong TV. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, and I am here once again with Jay Denton, who is the Chief Labor Market Analyst at ThinkWhy. Jay, welcome back to Techstrong TV. I don't get to say that very often, but I'm really happy when I can. So welcome back to Techstrong TV. It's great to see you.
Of course, Charlene. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, last time you and I spoke, we talked about, I believe it was the developer job market and what the outlook was for that. You guys have done some research on the DevSecOps space as well, specifically the job market for DevSecOps professionals and what the market is holding. So I would love to pick your brain about that. First of all, I guess we should talk a little bit about ThinkWhy. Tell us a little bit about ThinkWhy.
Sure. At ThinkWhy, we have a product called Labor IQ, which is a talent intelligence platform, which really specializes in helping set salaries. So, retention is such a huge issue today. I mean, we've had 4.3 million people quit as of the latest month. It's a challenge. And so making sure whether it's current employees or if you're trying to get that next new employee and making sure you set the right salaries, that's where we really specialize.
Okay, great. I just have to wonder where all those 4.however many million people, where'd they all go? It's like they all went to find themselves, I guess, go sit on a mountaintop or something. I don't know. But yeah, this has just been such a strange year when it comes to hiring and the job market in general, because we keep getting kind of these conflicting reports of, we have such a skills gap, but people are quitting. And so we can't really fill the jobs and where really, it's kind of a serious question. Where did all the people go? But when we're talking about DevOps, it's a specific area that is not as kind of broad as, like, say, the software developer area in general, where it would be easier to find people to fill these open positions. In DevOps, and specifically DevSecOps, the more things you add to Dev and Ops, the more nichier it gets. So what are you guys seeing in the DevOps space right now, or DevSecOps space, in regards to the job market? And are we experiencing kind of a dearth of professionals in that space, or are we experiencing people leaving the market in DevSecOps, or what are some of the trends that you guys are seeing?
Yeah, great questions. Overall, and super in high demand. I mean, all tech roles, being on your show, every time I think you ask me about a tech role, the answers can be in very high demand because they have been, with so many people, digitizing their services or their products over, especially because of COVID and, just the impact from it. And so, specifically when we looked at DevOps, you hit it right on the head. It's a much more niche role than some of the others that are out there. And so, if we scan the markets and you're wondering kind of the profile that we see, typically it's somebody who has roughly 2 to 4 years of experience. That's like the middle part of the market. So 2 to 4 years of experience, maybe between a bachelor's and a master's. And it's in short supply. I mean, even someone with only a few years of experience is already in short supply. We create this labor index where we're looking at, relative supply of all these different jobs. I'll tell you, even for that one, very low supply. You start to ratchet it up, and somebody with 6 years or 8 years or more of experience, it's going to be very hard to find those people unless you pull them from somewhere else, which is why people mostly are quitting. So they're not just going and hanging out on the beach. Recruiters are being very aggressive And so we'll talk about wages, but people are being very aggressive and going to these companies, and finding them, poaching them. What compensation they're getting at this point? So again, let's start with that kind of middle of market person. Mm-hmm. It's going to depend on geographies and type of company and so on, but usually somewhere between about it can be 100,000 up to, let's call it 150,000. Your Seattle's and San Jose type markets, more towards the upper end. If you get more experience, or you're in, say, the financial industry or software publishing, you're a big company, you could be looking at, closer to $200,000.
Wow, that's great. And that's for like entry level DevOps, or is that more kind of mid level?
Yeah, that would be a little bit more upper level. When you're in that 150, 170, 200 entry level, though, again, you were talking, and this isn't quite entry, but 2 to 4 years of experience to make in the 120 to 140 range.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, if somebody out there who's a little bit more budget conscious, you might be out of luck. I don't know, but starting out closer to 100 is in a lot of markets, that's where it's at.
That's pretty awesome. So, have you noticed an increase in open positions specifically in DevSecOps, or are organizations not really kind of delineating between DevOps and DevSecOps? Are they looking specifically for DevSecOps professionals?
Yeah, it's going to obviously depends on how the organization is structured, and
sure.
Perhaps over time, and even now, some people define DevOps as DevSecOps because without the security integrated, it becomes challenging as quick as deployment schedules are. And so, yeah, certainly in high demand, but it is going to depend on the individual company, how they structure their role.
Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense. I think there, kind of in general, there is the push to kind of integrate DevOps, but make it just part of the whole thing. You don't really want to call out Sec as part of DevOps. But at the same time, so many organizations really aren't doing DevSecOps very well. And so I think there's still somewhat of an emphasis on making sure that, the Sec part of DevSecOps is still fundamentally top of mind for developers. So I think we're going to still see that job title or that category for quite a while before it, fully becomes integrated. So I'll be interested in seeing what some of the hiring trends are around that. Do you think that as we get closer into, more organizations adopting this DevSecOps mindset or business process, do you think that it will become more of a requirement for DevOps professionals in the hiring process that they have some level of knowledge around security practices and application security in general?
I think so, just because it's so critical. I mean, you look at just some of the studies that I've seen. Yeah, I saw one that Google had registered more than 2 billion phishing domains earlier this year, which was up 27% from the prior year. 100 million plus phishing emails going out every day. So security around everything, all the data breaches that you see, certainly you have to think about that every step of the way and make sure it's embedded in the process.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some changes when it comes to job descriptions and qualifications and recommendations for these new positions moving forward. It's going to have a much deeper emphasis on security, and that kind of makes me wonder how that's going to kind of skew the numbers when we're talking about these professionals, because traditionally a lot of them, they go to school for software development or something in particular, and they don't really have too much of a focus or a specialty, if you will, when they get out of college. So is that having an impact on, how maybe people are entering the market, and then maybe are they jumping over into specializing in DevOps or DevSecOps or cloud native or SRE or any of these other more kind of niche-y areas that we discussed earlier?
Yeah, I would say just specifically on the security side, because things are ever changing, it's certainly going to be an area where you're constantly having to stay up on the market and understand all the new things that are out there in terms of attacks or just ways to safeguard what you're doing. Just on the DevOps side, whether you're looking at on-site servers, offsite, serverless, those require kind of different people and different skill sets and different knowledge domains. And so, depending on the individual, as you progress throughout your career, the types of companies you work for, you might have to be in this ongoing, even more ongoing learning process to make sure you're up to date on what the company needs.
So what about the idea of this continuing education or upskilling for these professionals that are already in the space that are looking to maybe increase their skill set or switch to another area altogether? Are you seeing that is having an impact on the job market insofar as, maybe salary-wise or numbers of employees or job openings? How is that kind of having an impact? Because we've been hearing a lot more emphasis on the idea of upskilling over the last couple of months, and it's really becoming top of mind. It seems like with a lot of folks, just because I don't know if it had more to do with the fact that they had a lot of downtime during the pandemic, and so they decided to really kind of dig in and increase their understanding and level of knowledge, or if they just realized that maybe they didn't want to be doing the same thing for the rest of their lives. So I don't know, but what are you guys seeing as far as upskilling is concerned?
Well, I think it's a combination of all that. I think the reality is the labor market is so tight today that obviously you would like somebody to come into that role knowing everything about it, plug and play, they're ready to go. The reality is it's so hard to get people that I think companies are more open to, once you get over here, we will train you on what we do and how we do it. We just need people. And so I would say specifically within technology roles, I would expect that to start to be even more of the case than it was before.
It's really interesting because to your point, organizations need people, but I've heard from some people who say, I've applied for all these jobs and I'm not getting any callbacks. So I don't know there seems to be some sort of disconnect happening in the industry as well. So are there certain tips or tricks that you can maybe share with the audience about ways that, if you are in the job market, maybe what you can do to kind of get your resume noticed and get hired and re-enter the workforce in a happy place?
Yeah, I tell you, it's very interesting what you bring up, and here's why. Right now, there are 10.4 million jobs open in the U.S., and that's down from the all-time record that was just set of 10.9. If that wasn't the record, this would have been the record. I mean, we see more jobs open in the U.S. than we've ever seen before. In fact, about double the amount of typically what we would have. So it appears like there are tons of jobs open and employers can't hire fast enough. But I do hear from candidates that are saying, I hear that, but that's not what I'm seeing on the ground. And so I do think it varies potentially by role, and, companies trying to figure out along the way, what are they looking for? And sometimes they have a budget in mind or a skill set in mind. And if you don't fit specifically on the skill set side, that's where there can be some challenges. So obviously staying up on education and knowing which types of softwares to stay up to date on, which tools, that's obviously a key because it helps get the foot in the door faster. I'll tell you, probably technology, maybe more than other roles. It's, technology professionals oftentimes are preferring remote work. There are a lot of companies out there who are looking at least a hybrid model, if not more back in office. And so if you are willing to go hybrid or in office, that could open up your potential a lot in finding a new job, because those companies are some of the ones having the hardest time finding candidates.
I would agree with you there. And I wonder if the rush last year when everybody had to move, work from home, and so many of them decided, well, if I'm going to have to work from home, then I'm going to go live somewhere where I really want to live. And I wonder if that actually, in the end, is kind of backfiring for some of these folks, because they may be in an area now where it's not a technology rich environment. And so there's just not many opportunities for them to work either hybrid or in office full time. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
Yeah. The other thing along that path is, on the flip side, I do think it has something to do with it. On the flip side, if you really want to stay remote, if you're in one of the locations where it's a little bit more low cost, like in some cases in the Southeast, maybe Midwest, where you can afford a salary that's a very nice salary still, but it's significantly lower than what's on some of the coasts, you could be a very attractive candidate for some of those companies. So maybe be more proactive and look at some other places around the country and see if they're hiring remotely. And I was just speaking with someone this week, is in a different industry, but we're here in Dallas, they're in North Carolina, and they just lost people to Dallas because the Dallas folks are out of talent locally. I mean, our job market has been so strong. We don't have people here. And so we're having to look elsewhere and are willing to pay Dallas salaries, even if that's above what that other local market rate is. So there is some potential to be proactive and maybe look at some of those opportunities.
All right, great. Well, so many interesting parameters to the job market these days, and I'm always fascinated by it. And it's always a pleasure having a conversation with you, Jay, about what's going on in the space. And of course, you're always welcome back on Techstrong TV to talk more about what's happening in the job market as it relates to DevOps and cybersecurity and what have you. So thank you again for being on Techstrong TV. Really do appreciate having you here.
Of course, Charlene. Good to visit with you today.
Yeah, great. All right, everybody, please stick around. We've got lots more Techstrong TV coming up, so stay tuned.
With the COVID-19 pandemic, it is important to protect yourself and others from spreading the virus. Prevention and personal safety is key. Here are the top ways you can protect yourself and others. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Avoid touching your face. Practice social distancing and avoid high-risk potential people. If you are showing symptoms, stay at home. If you must go out, wear a face mask. Always cover coughs and sneezes with a tissue or use the inside of your elbow. Clean and sanitize frequently touched surfaces daily. Together, we can prevent this pandemic.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Techstrong TV. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, and I'm here now with Charlie Newark French, who is the COO of a company called Hyperscience. Charlie, thank you very much for taking the time and being on the Zoom with me today. I appreciate it.
Awesome. I'm excited for this. Thank you for hosting me, Charlie.
You bet. No problem. I thought it would be a great conversation to have with you on the topic of the automation skills gap and what that means for the industry in general and what organizations need to do to kind of shore up their defenses, if you will, when it comes to ensuring that they are prepared from a skills perspective moving forward, especially with so many organizations in the throes of their digital transformation efforts and the importance of automation in that. But first, let's talk about Hyperscience. Why don't you introduce us to your company?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm Charlie. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Hyperscience. Hyperscience started in 2014. I joined the company about 3 years ago. My background is helping companies scale from the sort of 10 million in ARR up to the 100 and 200 million in ARR. And that's the sort of growth path that Hyperscience has been on. We help organizations automate their back offices. We help organizations get data that is inherently human readable in its format. This might be a pay stub, a bank statement, it might be a passport, into downstream systems, into machine readable formats. And then we help process that. We do this for large banks, we do this for large insurance companies, government agencies. And Charlene, I'll just give you one example to make it as real as possible. If you think of mortgage processing, there's about 800 pages of documents that need to be processed to verify who you are, where you've lived, who you've worked for. We help get all that data into the right places and radically speed up mortgage processing applications.
Well, that's awesome, especially if you are the one who's in the throes of buying a house and you understand exactly how much paperwork is involved in it. But that's great. That sounds like a really, really nifty company, and what you guys are doing is pretty nifty. And obviously, because of what you do, you guys are seeing that there is a skills gap that is existing right now among organizations that are adopting automation. Really want to kind of hear what you guys are seeing in the space as it relates to that skills gap. Are we talking about an organization that maybe is adopting automation but doesn't have the technology or the knowledge of the technology to among its employees to really embrace automation and derive the most value from it? Or are we talking about something entirely different?
Yeah, look, I see when we meet with the CEOs of large companies, we see two skills gaps. The first is on the folks that can re-engineer business processes. These tend to be engineers, and I'll speak a little bit about that. And the second is the actual knowledge workers, the brokers, the people who are involved day-to-day on working actually with end consumers, end customers. On the first one, end consumers aren't exposed to how messy the systems are within large enterprises. They have no idea, but they do feel the pain. If you're you just spoke about it from a mortgage processing perspective. If you're filing for a mortgage, it takes 6 weeks. It's opaque. No one has any idea what's going on. And meanwhile, customers or consumers are seeing substantially better user experiences elsewhere in their lives. Mm-hmm. Now, what's going on behind the scene is there are pieces of code that were written in the 1960s, this is a true story, that are still live processing mortgages at some of the largest enterprises in the world. There is a lot of work that needs to be done to reorganize, re-engineer those business processes. And if you think of a mortgage processing application, from the day you say, I'd like a mortgage, to the day you're awarded it, is about a 6-week process and a 50-step process. It's very messy. The first skills gap is how do you take cutting edge technology and deploy it into what is typically a very legacy tech stack that's behind the scene at large enterprises. And there is far more to be automated than could possibly be automated with the number of engineers that are out there right now. So key to how we think about this at Hyperscience is how do you use very, very simple code to make engineers substantially more powerful and to give more autonomy to the short number of engineers that are out there. And then the second skills gap is actually on the users of the tech stack that are actually day to day in the process. And what you typically find is that some of this software, I refer to it as a tech stack, a sort of a museum of the tech stack from the 1980s. It's not intuitive. And key to this, we think, and key to allowing change to actually happen is making building software that is as intuitive to use as a software on your iPhone. You give an iPhone, a consumer app to a child, they learn how to use it in 2 or 3 minutes. You give a child a piece of technology that sits in a large enterprise, they're never going to be able to do a single thing with it. And so how do you make sort of extremely powerful software, enterprise-grade software, that is actually consumer-grade user experience? And we think that's part of the key to solving a skills gap.
I think that makes a whole lot of sense. And to your point, yes, my son, when he was 2, he could work the iPad better than I could. So there we have it. But I don't think he can fill out a mortgage application to save his life.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so just so I understand, I do understand fundamentally, what this technology does for organizations, and I think it's really, really great to hear. When we're talking about organizations that might be undergoing their digital transformation efforts, and we've seen a lot of that happening over the last 18 months or so, what role might your organization play and your technology play in helping organizations in their digital transformation efforts?
Yes. Well, look, Charlie, let me start by saying that the organizations that get this right and get it wrong will result in massive market share shifts. There is a large amount of revenue to be won if you get this right. Customers are very clearly voting with their wallets here. You see, if you look at insuring your iPhone nowadays, it takes a few clicks and it costs a few dollars a month. The amount of the adoption of that product is up substantially because people have made it so simple. So I think the urgency here is being felt by all of the enterprises we work with. I think the key to success that we see is knowing where you're coming from and knowing where you want to go. Sometimes we'll go in and we'll speak to the CEO of a large enterprise and they get super frustrated with the state of their organization. They're like, why can't it just be different? And that is a powerful insight, but it's not a helpful insight. Right. The question is how do you say, right, this is where we are. We have one company that deals with 2% of the documents they see are faxes. We have another company that we work with where almost all of the data they see comes in from an online portal. How do you go from whatever that is, that messy setup, to what it looks like in the future? And I think finding partners that can take you along that journey is key. And that's how we think about it here at Hyperscience. I'll give you a very real world example. We work with a insurance company in Europe that they're the largest digital first insurance company. So they don't have any physical presence. Very, very modern tech stack, cutting edge. Their promise to customers, it's called One Insurance, or they just rebranded as WeFox. Their promise to customers is 5% cheaper than competitors. Give us a quote, we'll give you it 5% cheaper, and approved the same day. Now, they do this across various forms of insurance underwriting or insurance onboarding, taking out insurance policy. We first started helping them with automobile insurance. So if you want to insure your car, this company is going to do it slightly cheaper and substantially faster than the competitors. And we help them deliver on that second promise, underwriting an insurance policy substantially faster than can be done elsewhere. And it's been extremely compelling to customers. The success of that company is just on those two promises: ever so slightly cheaper, 5% cheaper, but substantially better user experience.
So do you see most organizations using this for kind of their external systems or customer-facing systems, or do you see organizations adopting these, this hyper-automation for some of their their internal processes that, kind of help improve the systems in general and the just streamline operations?
Look, I think there's 4 reasons that companies are deploying automation. And I think that for me, the first 2 here are extremely compelling. The first is speed. And now this mostly manifests as customer experience. And that's what we've spoken a lot about here. Why is it taking 6 weeks to process a mortgage? Why is it not taking 6 days? Why is it taking 3 weeks to pay out an insurance claim? Why is that not taking 1 day? Those are the questions that consumers are asking themselves. And so what we do at Hyperscience is we try to speed up those processes by about 10x. That's the results that we see for our end customers. That, I think, is the single biggest impact of automation. Substantially better outcomes for end consumers, which is revenue, ultimately. The top concern on almost anyone's mind that we speak to is revenue. The second is cost. How can we do this same outcome but substantially cheaper? If you're optimizing for cost, we can save you around 90%. And that is a benefit of automation for sure. The third is accuracy, and this is where it tends to lean more internal than external, but there are a lot of external use cases there. There's a lot of regulation out there, a lot of compliance out there that mean that small human errors are not acceptable to either the regulator, to the internal risk folks in the company, or ultimately to the end consumer. And what is a sort of the result of that accuracy? It is not awarding someone a mortgage that perhaps should have been given it. It is paying out someone an insurance claim that perhaps shouldn't have been paid out. All these results have either very real impact on the end consumer or very real impact on the bottom line of a large organization. So accuracy matters. And then the last one I would say, which has become very compelling, is employees at companies don't want to work in these legacy tech stacks. If you're exceptionally good at what you do, let's say you're one of the best brokers in town, you've got a great network, and you're being forced by your company, I'm not going to name some of their companies that sort of rate particularly badly here, but you're being forced by your company to use terrible old software to get your work done. All of your stuff that you love doing, you're really good at. All of the stuff that you hate doing, you're being held back by a tech stack. And you find those people go to the younger companies or the companies that have a more modern tech stack. So those are sort of reasons that I think automation is key to organizations right now.
Okay. All right. Great. Yeah, and that makes total sense. So, so then we are faced with a workforce that may not be as educated, if you will, on the technology, which I would imagine can hinder some of the, or some organizations actually realizing the benefits of automation. So what can organizations do to prepare their workforce to use this technology?
Our view of automation, and I think the way that it will pan out, is that people are key to automation. What we've seen, if you look at sort of a physical assembly line, is you see that there are parts of that physical assembly line that are entirely done by machines and parts of that assembly line that are entirely done by people. If you look at car manufacturing, 100% of doors are pressed with a machine right now. That is just a job that a machine can do relatively simply. Some of the electronic work is too complicated for machines right now, and that's done 100% by people. The way that automation will play out in a knowledge space, in offices, in the back office, is going to be a digital assembly line with handoffs at every step. But it's also going to be partial automation. And I think anyone that thinks they can automate fully, that they can just take out people and people won't be a part of it, doesn't understand the difficulty of the nuance of the work. And like I say, there is far more work to be done than we can possibly imagine automated at this point. We're not really talking about taking mortgage processing down from 6 weeks to 6 days. That would be a dream. We're taking it down to 4 weeks, and then eventually we might get it up to a day. But this handoff between software when it can do the work, yes, this is a super easy income verification. I can see from the pay stub and the bank statement, this person's had the same job for the last 3 years. The software is 99.95% confident this person earns $50,000. Let the software do that. But when it's not, that someone's changed a job recently, they've got multiple forms of income, maybe they took a sabbatical, that needs to be handed over to a person in a very seamless fashion. And so what you find being done is some of the more mundane, easy work is done by software, and some of the harder work is done by people. And I think what people think will happen is it will go from a world where immediately a person goes from doing job A that is something to job Z, which is entirely different. Actually, what you go from job A, which is something that's ever so slightly different, job B. And then by the time we get to job Z, everyone sort of has been part of that upskilling over a 20 or 30 year period. This change happens painfully slower than I think some people think it might happen.
Yeah, for all the conversations that we have about automation, you're absolutely right. It's certainly not an overnight process, and I think organizations would do well to as they do embrace automation, to have those frank conversations with their employees and say, look, we're not replacing you with a machine. It's it's there to augment what you do and to make your life better and easier by taking away some of those mundane tasks or rote tasks that really don't add value and probably kind of bore you to death in the process. So automation is a fascinating thing, and I think it's obviously to the benefit of the organization. So I applaud you guys for coming up with the technologies and the expertise to help organizations kind of move into this digital age and utilize automation in the best way possible. But thank you very much for having the conversation with me today, Charlie. I really do appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Charlene, thank you so much for the time today.
All right, great. All right, everybody, please stick around. We've got lots more Techstrong TV coming up, so stay tuned. everybody. Happy Tuesday. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, and I'm here now with the webinars preview. As I always tell you, we have so many great webinars coming up on DevOps.com, Container Journal, and Security Boulevard. Here are 3 that are happening this week in the hopes that you'll be able to mark your calendar and join us. The first one is the Techstrong panel for SRE. This one is happening Wednesday. That's tomorrow, folks, November 17th at noon Eastern on DevOps.com. This is a panel discussion providing guidance based on the experiences of what successful companies are doing to proactively identify areas for improvement and provide people with the autonomy to implement solutions by bridging the gap between developers and operations. In other words, SRE. Panelists for this webinar include Kevin Keeney of Everbridge, Pradeep Padala of Filament, Justin McCarthy of StrongDM, and Anthony Evans of StackState. Definitely one worth checking out if you are interested in SREs, want to learn more about it, how organizations have successfully integrated SRE into their operations. Good stuff there. The next webinar is called Shift Left Cloud Application and Workload Security, Threat Prevention from Code Through Runtime. This one is happening Thursday, November 18th at 11 a.m. Eastern on DevOps.com. It is sponsored by Argonne Security. This webinar delves into software supply chain security, including security risks across applications and workloads throughout the cloud development lifecycle, and how to effectively shift security left to ensure threat prevention across all processes from code to production. So during this webinar, our speakers will take a look at the cloud application threat landscape, provide some practical security tips and DevOps best practices to shift left the security of cloud applications, and tips on how to apply a stronger security posture over your software supply chain and production environments. This is going to be a good one also. I'm looking forward to that one. All right, the third and final webinar is called Modern Ransomware, How We Got Here and Where We're Going. This one is also happening Thursday, November 18th. This one is at 3 p.m. Eastern on Security Boulevard. This is sponsored by Rubrik. This webinar takes a look at how attacks have evolved to exploit COVID-19 over the last 19 months or so, and what some of the most successful organizations have done to defend against them. So some of the takeaways include what the future of ransomware looks like and how you can stay ahead of the curve, why data protection will become the most critical element of your security strategy, and how to make backups that rescue you from attack. Good one also. Looking forward to all 3 of these. All right, that's it for the webinar's preview. I'll have a fresh new batch for you next time around. Until then, I hope everybody has a great day, and please, whatever you do, stay safe.
DevOps.com is the #1 online destination for DevOps education and community building. DevOps.com covers all aspects of DevOps, including DevOps best practices and tools, DevOps culture, DevSecOps, business impact, continuous testing, continuous delivery, and more. DevOps.com has the largest collection of original DevOps content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.devops.com to learn more. DevOps.com, where the world meets DevOps.
All right, welcome back. Next up, we've got The View with Vizard, in which Mike Vizard speaks with SpeedScale CTO Matt LeRae. They discuss why building microservices-based applications is so darn difficult. It's a great conversation. Let's roll it now.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey guys, thanks for the throw again. We're here with Matt LeRae, who's the CTO for SpeedScale. They are a provider of a framework for testing your APIs. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to meet you, Michael.
APIs have been around for some time, but we're starting to see a lot more microservices, which means there's more APIs maybe facing internally inside of organizations, and they're using these things to build arguably some more complex applications. From your perspective, what is the biggest challenge in building a microservices application these days?
Well, so the biggest challenge is actually a change in mindset, which is if you go back, 20 years or even 5 years ago, a lot of times when you were trying to solve the problem of quality, you solved it within an individual monolith, right? Like the application was this one thing that some people understood, and it was like this big thing, and you would want to dive deep into it. What's really kind of changed with microservices is now the problem is not really in the individual services or the pieces. It's actually between the services. So it's a totally different way of thinking about the problem. And so, you're seeing kind of all the methodologies in this space get turned over as a result.
Do you think some people have attempted to build microservices applications and then just given up and went back to a monolithic architecture? Or, are people kind of like, well, I like this idea, but it's just too hard?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people end up with a micro monolith over time. So they end up with I think it's kind of not just giving up. What it is that they end up with a bunch of microservices. They split things out, but they have to do all the practices of a monolith. So all of their software validation, like testing or the way that they observe it and monitor it, they really are trying to, they end up kind of repackaging it. And so they get some of the development velocity improvements, but they don't get the real promise of microservices, the automatic scale, et cetera. Like, if you think about microservices and where it came from, it's a way of increasing developer velocity. The way I think of it is kind of like a sort of extension of Conway's law. You end up with all these tiny little agile teams, development teams, which is great because you get separation of concerns. Every team owns their own little microserver and container, and they can iterate, they can choose their own technology stack. They can pretty much do whatever they want, which is great for velocity, right? But the problem is that once that stuff moves into production or even into the validation phase, it creates this web, this haunted house, this as Corey Quinn says, a murder mystery, right? Of trying to figure out which one of these things is actually breaking. And so the smart organizations, the cloud forward ones, end up finding new philosophies for how to validate the software before it goes out. And then the folks that are kind of still struggling, they end up just trying to do traditional testing, and they end up turning it into a monolith, right? And setting more hard rules and configuration, and then they start losing the benefits of microservices as a result.
I think part of the challenge is also there's a lot of dependencies between the different microservices, and the application doesn't really just fall over the way a monolith does. It just degrades, and you'll spend forever looking for where the performance issues are. So what's your best advice to folks to think about how to go find those issues when there's so many APIs calling each other and you don't know exactly what goes with what?
Yeah, that's a wise observation. So I think that I guess my first advice is sort of meta, like kind of high level, and then getting into brass tacks and tactical things. You need to change the way that you're thinking about the software development lifecycle and start thinking about it in terms of GitOps and continuous delivery. And that's going to open up a bunch of doors when you change that philosophy. So, first things first, right? It's a lot easier to figure out, change issues caused by change, issues caused by developers messing with things or cloud providers or whatever it is, if you have a GitOps workflow. And if some of your listeners haven't heard of GitOps, it basically means that everything that happens in the production system or even the test system is triggered by a GitHub action or a GitLab runner. Everything is done through the code repository. And so what that forces is it forces a focus on automation and on sort of reliability, because you can't get away with doing these instant hacks, right? So you get a control environment, right? Is kind of what GitOps does, amongst many other things. I think the second thing is that you have to rethink the way that you validate software. And so that's what my company focuses on. Is we're not just trying to create another testing tool. We're trying to rethink the way that you validate software for microservices. And for us, what that means is catching problems before they get to production. So what a lot of companies end up doing now, you see the massive growth in the observability market, right? It's just a fantastic, I always say we have an embarrassment of riches in monitoring nowadays, because we have every tool you can imagine, right? We have replicas of Facebook Scuba. We have, great, dashboarding systems, et cetera, et cetera. And so that kind of the philosophy behind that is we're going to go test. It's too hard to validate this thing. It's too many moving parts. There's too many scale issues. There's too many things going on. So let's just send it to production and then we'll run some canaries. Problem is canaries die because now you have a bunch of users that were unhappy with these canaries being run. And you need an immensely sophisticated infrastructure to be able to run these things safely and keep the blast radius low. And it's very hard for modern organizations to do that. Facebook's able to do it. A lot of other companies are, able to do it. But if you don't have that kind of engineering capacity lying around, it's very difficult to do this safely. And so what we focus on is bringing, and I think there's a bunch of us like this, right? Like there's open source frameworks and other, sort of companies doing this, is we're trying to find a way to bring the complexity of the microservices architecture and shrink it down to the size of a container and then move it onto the developer's desktop. So you can go and say, you know what? I don't have to worry about writing all these test cases, right? That's kind of 2015, writing test cases. I don't have to worry about connecting up and to this load balancer that may be pointed to the wrong place in production, or filtering out traffic, my third-party APIs, throttling me. Instead, I'm going to shrink this problem down and attack it at the size at which it was developed, which is at the container level. So that was a long-winded answer to your question, but yeah.
Speaking of containers, what do you think the impact Kubernetes is having on microservices? On the one hand, I might argue it's the most powerful platform that's come down the pike in a while. On the other hand, it's also the most complex. So what's the upside here?
Yeah, there's a great tweet. I got to go look up who said it. I said one of my coworkers asked me to explain Kubernetes, and then I tried to explain it, and now we both don't understand it. So, as I like to say, Kubernetes is wonderful. It's wonderful, but it's also wonderfully complex. And so the way I think about Kubernetes is it's basically an operating system on top of the cloud. If you understand how to network with Kubernetes, and if you understand how to manage containers with Kubernetes, you kind of have a leg up on designing and implementing infrastructure and maintaining it. If you learn Kubernetes, it sort of abstracts a lot of that stuff away. I mean, this is an ideal case. But it's great. And so the benefit you get from Kubernetes is you get certain very, very refined design choices are made in Kubernetes. Things like how to do auto scaling, or how to do high availability even, right, is being worked out right now. Multi-cluster. There's some immensely smart people that are figuring out the right way to do these things, and you benefit from that. So the thing I'd say from Kubernetes is you get scale, right? But as you said, Michael, the complexity is pretty difficult, right? Figuring out why Kubernetes is doing what it's doing and getting ahead of those problems can be extremely difficult, right? Why is my pod not starting? A lot of people can't even figure those things out, right? It's hard, right? So I think that Kubernetes is, if I have to say, we're kind of crossed in the chasm with Kubernetes now. We're seeing a lot of our customers are starting to use it as a mainstream technology. And so now they're starting to hit the problems as it goes to production and starting to experience scale. The scale issue may be mitigated, but they're ending up with a lot of friction between the components. But kind of what we were talking about earlier with the microservices, they're trying to figure out how to make these dynamic systems work with each other, all these services. Do
you think that we need to rethink our DevOps workflows as we move to microservices, and then a lot of folks are still using the same workflows that they use for monolithic applications, and does that need to be adjusted as well?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. There's a lot of meat on that bone, the question you just asked. And yeah, I think so. I think that, let's talk about testing a little bit, right? Because that's kind of some of the focus of our chat here is, so in a traditional monolith, there's a pretty well-built software development lifecycle and validation phase or testing phase. You go and you build unit tests. Everybody builds unit tests. And I think that that's true. That's not just a survey result. Actually, people do build unit tests. And in many cases, they're very good. The next thing that you might do is you would do an integration test or system test, which is basically putting all the components together in some sort of lower environment and then running tests through it. And you kind of see if the thing works together. Do all these microservices work? And in a monolith, of course, that's easier, right? And then you get into end-to-end testing, which is blast the front end, right? Like the user interface, test some transactions that we guess and think maybe users will do, seems reasonable. We'll do that and then see what happens. The problem is microservices blow that process up. They blow the process up because the problems show up in they show up in weird ways that involve multiple services interacting instead of in the old monolith world, where if you blasted it, the monolith kind of did what it did, and you had a pretty good idea what was going to happen. But now you've got all these different services moving, and layer on top of that, you've got rapid deployments. Like a lot of our some of our customers push out 200 times a day, right? Which was unimaginable even a few years ago for the average company to do. So you've got the services constantly changing. Then you've got too many of them, and you've got weird interactions between them that only show up in certain situations. And so integration testing has kind of been blown up, right? So that's a part of the process. So the entire class of issues that were found by integration testing are just going straight to production now, right? And you're hoping you catch them. So I think there's a different way. I think it's a better way, and I think it's still evolving. This is out on the cutting edge, right, of cloud native technology, where everyone's figuring this out. So I don't claim to have all the answers, but we're starting to figure them out as we move. So kind of if you return the integration testing problem, what's the issue? Why doesn't it work anymore? Well, the services. But the other thing that we haven't talked about much is you can't really write realistic test cases, especially when an app is changing 200 times a day. You just can't, right? Second thing is on the other side of the app, you can't build realistic mocks. We had one of our customers tell us that it took, I think it was Chick-fil-A said, it took roughly a week to write a single mock. Okay, well, I'm pushing 200 times a day. How's that going to work? How am I going to do that, right? I'm going to have an entire team, have twice my team writing mocks all the time as the people who actually develop the software. It's sort of insane, right? So then the third thing is the infrastructure and the environment is very hard to keep up to date for one of the things that you just said, which is Kubernetes. Everyone's tweaking it, changing the behavior, changing the replica set limits, doing all these different things, right, that are changing the behavior. So what do you do about it, right? Well, I think you change the way that you change the process and you change the philosophy to where you say, we are no longer going to do these manual things anymore. We're going to apply automation, but we're going to do it in sort of a slipstream way. We're going to do it in a continuously changing way. We're going to say, we're going to take traffic from more realistic environments, traffic being API calls, downstream calls, upstream calls, isolate the service, take that traffic, copy it, and bring it into the lower environments. So instead of writing test cases, I'm going to find out what people did. Real people, even if it's in the staging environment, I'll find out what they really did. I'll know. I don't have to guess. And when it changes, I'll see the change. And then we're continuously updating the entire environment. So it becomes this package, this isolation environment that the developer can bring straight to their desktop or put in your CI system, et cetera. So you shrink the shape of the problem down and you approach it with automation and traffic instead of trying to build all this stuff anymore. So I'll pause for a second because I said a lot of stuff there. So.
There's a lot of frustration with microservices in general because it's hard to replicate a problem once you discover it and going back. It's one thing to test before you put the app out, but it seems like a lot of folks are having intermittent gremlins that just show up and they're very hard to replicate. So how do I get after that from a testing perspective?
Well, from a traditional testing perspective, you don't. You guess. You call somebody who's really, really smarter than me. You bring them over and then you say, hey, what do you think might have happened here, right? And then they go and they do some voodoo, they do some like strange, testing this out and all that, and they figure it out. But the modern way I think is different. What we do, what we can, or, SweetScale folks on, but other companies too, is you just constantly are doing, replays of so you're constantly capturing the traffic, right? Because storage is cheap. Right. That's sort of a philosophy shift that's happened in the last few years with all the cloud data warehouses, is that it used to be storage was scarce. It's so cheap that it doesn't even show up on your bill anymore. Right. So you can capture everything now, right? Just capture it. Then take that capture of what actually happened retroactively and then go and test it out in the developer's desktop. And it solves a couple problems. The first thing is that if you can capture all of that and you can do it with high fidelity, right, you can bring it back and it changes the problem from an observability problem where you're looking at telemetry. So, and instead you're looking at the real events, right? So you're kind of changing philosophy. When you're looking at telemetry, like metrics or log statements or whatever, you're inferring what happened, right? From like outside information. It's like, it's not exactly what happened. You're kind of like guessing, right? And really smart people can do good guesses. However, for the rest of us, it's better to actually be able to to bolt on that traffic to even like a debugger, right? And just watch what happened, right? And it makes the problem a heck of a lot easier to go and hunt down. So that's one approach, right? There's a bunch of other things you can do as well. But that's one of the ones that's working well.
Do you think it's getting easier to instrument applications, and that helps with the testing process because the cost of the agent is cheaper, it's open source, or we're evolving that way, and so maybe things will get better as we go along?
I'm super excited with what's happening in that area around instrumentation for two key reasons. The first technology I'm really excited about is OpenTelemetry. I think a lot of us are excited about it. And the reason why for me is that because the community is so strong around cloud native, this has never happened before in the history of technology. We've never had such a great group of people freely giving this type of knowledge away. But OpenTelemetry is coming of age. It's not quite there yet, but it's building up, right? And as it comes of age, all of the third-party libraries start to get instrumented. And so when you go and try to solve a problem, like you were saying, when you're trying to figure out the problem, you have this rich set of tracing data that was put in by other experts who understand their technology, their libraries, their whatever it is, and you just get it automatically. So when you get a sophisticated monitoring system or observability system, and you can surface those things up, and it makes it a lot easier to hunt down what's happening because you can follow that string, right, between all the different transactions, and a lot of that happens automatically. And I think good developers are lazy developers. I think good developers are people who don't want to do extra work. And so when all that happens automatically, I get very excited, right? So OpenTelemetry is one. The second thing I think that is fantastic that's happening is a focus on a technology called eBPF. And I don't know if you had anyone talk about eBPF yet? Okay. Mm-hmm. For those that are uninitiated, eBPF is this sort of marvelous, magical technology that, if you told me it existed 10 years ago, I'd say you're lying. There's no way. But it allows certain kinds of agents to look into the Linux kernel and extract data in a real-time running system. Now, in the past, that wasn't really possible. You had monitoring products, like traditional monitoring products, that would go and capture metrics. They could get some basic stuff, but eBPF lets you go in and actually look at payloads, like the very inner workings of the application with reasonably low overhead. And so there's companies like Pixie who are doing that. There's a bunch of other ones, ContaignIQ and others that are doing some really fascinating work there. And so it's like, I'm very optimistic about the data collection side of this and how it's getting easier, right, to diagnose these things. And then I think also there's a lot of companies doing things on the correlation side, and I think that's still sort of nascent. Like people are figuring all that out, but it's interesting seeing what's happening there with applying machine learning and to this problem. So.
All right, Matt, other than hanging out on your website, what's your best advice to folks who are building microservices these days?
Don't be afraid to throw things out. So in the past, what we would do with technology is we would layer new technology on top of old technology. And what I'm seeing firsthand with very large corporations that work with us is that you have to be the ones that are succeeding with cloud native are the ones that are willing to buy into the entire ethos, start to finish. So don't just say, I'm going to do Kubernetes. And I know people are going to do that. It doesn't matter what I say. People are going to do it. Don't just say, I'm going to do Kubernetes. Say, I'm going to design for Kubernetes and the entire cloud native ecosystem. And so when you do that, you start with GetOps, everything, is triggered by code control. Then you get into the automated infrastructure of Kubernetes. You use everything the way it's supposed to be used. You will have a happy life and things will go well for you. And if you don't, you will not be happy. You will get weird sort of intersections of problems that are very hard to figure out. So that's my fastest piece of advice.
Hey, Matt, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Great meeting you.
All right, guys, back to you in the studio.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
All right, that wraps up another Techstrong TV broadcast. Hope you enjoyed today's conversations as much as I did. We have a couple things coming up I want to remind you about later on this week. On Thursday, we are going to be presenting from the Qualys Security Conference. So we're going to be there. We're going to have a kind of an abbreviated regular Techstrong TV broadcast on Thursday. And then we will be offering up some interviews from the Qualys Security Conference. So you definitely want to stick around for that. Also happening on Thursday, we have our Low Code, No Code Virtual Summit. That one is happening online, obviously, and it is a great one. We have an amazing lineup of speakers for this one-day event. The agenda is fantastic. You definitely want to check that out. You can go to techstrongevents.com to check out all of the goodness that is the Low Code, No Code event. Also coming up very, very soon, December 1st, as a matter of fact, we've got InnoTech Oklahoma City. That is a live IT-focused conference, and I am so excited because I will be at that event, and we are going to have a great lineup of speakers at that event as well. So if you're in the area, please do come and join us. And then finally, rounding out the year for us events-wise, we have FinCon DX, and that one is happening December 9th. Again, that is a virtual event, and you can go to techstrongevents.com to check out the lineup of speakers and the agenda for that event. And I hope we can see you, and I hope you'll be able to participate in at least one of those, and hopefully more than that. But we are very, very excited about all of those events, and we're excited to be bringing you some interviews from the Qualys Security Conference happening this Thursday as well. So I will be back on Thursday with that abbreviated Techstrong TV broadcast. But until then, I hope everybody has a really great day. And please, whatever you do, stay safe.